I want you to think back to the first band or musician you really loved. Who was it? Shout it out. Spice Girls. Who else? Blink-182. Yes. Anyone else? Zendaya. Well, who is that? Madonna. Thank you, Marissa. Now, for me, my teeny bopper bedroom was blaring NSYNC and covered in posters of Justin and JC. I was their self-appointed #1 fan. And I'm sure in this room we have Swifties, congrats on the new album, Little Monsters, and some of the Beehive. So this special bond between creators and fans is nothing new, but it is dominating culture in 2025. I'm Jenny Haggard, and I lead thought leadership at Spotify. And to prove out the popularity of fandom, we're gonna start with a little game, okay? I'm gonna show you a picture of some fans, and you're gonna tell me what artist or band those fans represent, okay? It'll be quick. Let's start with a layup. Who do these fans represent? Not yet on the screen. There we go. Who do these fans represent? Oasis, yes, that was a layup. I think the bowl cuts really give it away. Next up, who are these pink cowgirl hats fanning over? Chappell Roan, correct. And finally, who inspires this level of coordinated commitment from his fans? Pitbull, Mr. Worldwide, right? Now, whether you got all these answers right or none of them, it doesn't matter. Because if you're a top fan, you get it. From committing to questionable haircuts to dressing like bald men, we at Spotify know how dedicated fans can be to their favorite artist. And it's because Spotify is where fandom thrives. Spotify is the best place to be a fan. And we know fans because we're fans too, which is why a lot of the work that we do, everything from our annual Wrapped campaign to our actual product, boils down to one key concept. We celebrate our fans, and we reward them for their loyalty. Every day, millions of people come to Spotify, not just to be entertained, but to express themselves, to find community, and to dive deeper into the fandoms that they love. And I should mention, that fandom goes so much deeper than just streaming music. Okay, let's take Chappell for example. I can go to Spotify and stream her latest single, but I can also watch exclusive video content from her. I can buy Midwest Princess merch or a ticket to her next show. And those are just things in the app. Fandom on Spotify also means first access to tickets because I'm a top fan, or unique artist experiences like Billions Club Live, where artists perform all of their hits that have garnered over 1 billion streams. Okay, we just did Miley Cyrus in Paris, and The Weeknd's top fans got to hear, get this, all 27 of his songs that have surpassed 1 billion streams. And so in my opinion, being a fan beats being a follower any day. I don't know about you, but I would much rather be a fan than a follower. Because when you're a fan of a creator, it's simply more authentic than the idea of following someone. But don't take my word for it. Users agree. 68% say that time spent on Spotify feels more positive than time spent on social media. So this isn't just about time spent. This is about time well spent. I think a more interesting metric. So our platform, put simply, is just a better place to be. And that positive environment is the foundation for all that we do at Spotify. And it's really thanks to those engaged fans that spend a lot of time on our platform that culture is both created and reflected on Spotify. So every day, we serve 696 million people, 696 million different experiences. You know, you really can be a fan of anything, thanks to our massive catalog content and our AI-driven streaming intelligence. It's why, actually, if all of us were to open up our Spotifys right now, they would all look different. And I think that this is how Spotify has become such a cultural platform. Yeah, we can connect you with the creators and the content that you love now, but we can also anticipate what you'll love next based on what you stream. And it goes beyond just different cultural moments, right? We can look at the mainstream moments. Like earlier this year, there was a 175% increase in Kendrick Lamar streams after his halftime performance at the Super Bowl, right? Or more currently, an over 320% increase in Oasis streams since their tour began. So when something happens in the world, we see it on Spotify. But what I think is more interesting are the niche cultural moments. So for example, if I'd been on the stage 5 to 7 years ago and said the word K-pop, I would have gotten a lot of blank stares in the crowd. okay? But what happened is that on Spotify, K-pop started as a very niche local genre, and we watched it slowly spread around the world until it exploded into a cultural phenomenon, which is why we have trends like this: 82% increase in overall K-pop streams following the K-pop Demon Hunters premiere. So the trend started on Spotify and actually created other cultural moments. Now, we can't talk about culture and fandom without also talking about podcasts. Okay, podcasts are the new water cooler. This is where cultural conversations are happening. And we reach on Spotify 90% of all podcast streamers. And over 350 million people have watched a video podcast. Now, I think this is fascinating because podcasts elongate culture. In a world, I think, where people are increasingly fed up with misleading sound bites and are instead craving depth and intimacy and knowledge. Now, I will say one of the most frequently asked questions I've gotten during my 11 years at Spotify, besides how do you do Wrapped, is how do I, as a brand, participate in culture? And the answer is pretty simple. We help you turn passion into performance. So whether you're focusing on upper funnel or lower funnel objectives, we can help you drive results. Because you simply showing up in a positive environment means that you're not just reaching audiences, you're reaching highly engaged fans. In fact, our ads drive twice the amount of attention than social media ads. And this combination is really what makes Spotify not only the essential daily companion for fans, but also a uniquely effective platform for brands. Now, Jenny, this sounds great, but how does this actually work? As the home of fandom and culture, we foster this uniquely positive, intentional environment where fans are actively choosing to participate. They're not doom scrolling, they're not swiping. And as a result of that, they are this engaged and highly receptive audience. And so when your brand shows up in front of them, you get their attention. And then those results allow us to reinvest in the Spotify platform, making this home of fandom and culture even stronger for artists, creators, fans, and brands. And the good news is that our investments are across the board. So lately, we've invested heavily in video. We've got hundreds of thousands of video podcasts, music videos, lyric videos, concert videos from Billions Club. We're much more interactive now. In case you missed it, AI DJ now takes requests. And we've added comments, which gives us more signals to better personalize user experiences. We're offering deeper integrations for brands, like baked-in podcast integrations, as well as social extensions. And we're showing up off-platform with live events and branded opportunities there. So yes, I get it. Spotify is the leader in audio. But as you can see here, we are so much more than that. And our strategy is working. In focus time on Spotify is up 38% year over year, which means that brands can reach audiences as people are switching between the foreground and the background experiences. And the proof is really in the performance. So if you're trying to drive results across the funnel, we've got you covered. Starting at the bottom of the funnel, we can help you achieve 90% incremental sales lift when you add video and display to your audio campaigns. We can help you drive efficiency, as you saw in the video earlier. 2025 campaigns on the trade desk that include Spotify are driving almost 9% lower cost per household and a whopping 44% lower cost per action. And finally, you can reach people on Spotify that you may be missing elsewhere. We're driving 27% incremental reach on top of TV campaigns and 22% on top of social and digital. So this combination really allows us to pour more into our platform to make fans even better and connect brands with those fans. You know, I think too often the conversation in our industry is about choosing between building your brand in cultural moments and driving performance. And the message today is that you don't have to choose. On Spotify, you can do both. And by connecting with this highly engaged audience, you can better drive results for your brand. Which is why I'm so excited to invite up our panelists who are going to talk about just that. So please welcome Allegra Krishnan, Chief Loyalty and Engagement Officer at McDonald's, Tracy-Ann Lim, Chief Media Officer at JPMorgan Chase, and Nora Princiotti, Staff Writer at The Ringer. And moderating them all, our fearless leader, Bridget Evans, Global Head of Business Marketing at Spotify.
Hi, everyone. And thank you, Jenny, for setting that up so beautifully, telling us all about the power of fandom. And now the four of us are going to build on that and give you practical, real-world examples about how to turn all of that into practice. And you're hearing this from the experts, the brands, and the creators who are doing exactly that. I'm Bridget Evans. I'm the global head of business marketing for Spotify, and I am so thrilled to be here today with Allegra, Tracy-Ann, and Nora. Now, as you just heard at Spotify, we really believe that the most effective campaigns have the ability to take that fandom, that passion, and turn it into actual ad performance. So on one side, you have this essential nature of fandom. You have the deeply engaged audiences in a highly, highly engaged, positive environment. And then on the other hand, you have the ability to buy through automated channels that allow you to optimize, to give you flexibility, control, and the measurement solutions that you need to drive performance. So today, we're talking about both sides of that equation, the passion, the fandom, and then the effectiveness and the results. So before we get started with our Q&A, I thought first, since we just talked all about fandom, we would kick it off by talking about who everyone thinks will be their top artists on Wrapped this year. So we'll just go in order. I'll start with you, Allegra.
Okay, I'll go with Lola Young.
Great. Ooh. Love Lola.
I've been indoctrinated by K-pop demon hunters in my house. So Saja Boys, Golden. Yes, those guys.
I have a feeling you are not alone by the laughter in the crowd.
I'm going to cheat and give two. Taylor Swift is a big part of my professional life, and she has been my top Wrapped artist for many years running. I don't expect any change this year, but I've become a huge fan of Audrey Hobart in the last few months, and so I think she's going to be way up there for me too.
Amazing. Well, we're going to start there. We're going to start with the fandom side, the emotional side of marketing. And Nora, because you just finished this, we'll start with you. So Nora's entire beat is about pop culture, and it's about what makes fans tick. So on a semi-recent podcast episode, you had the ability to sit down with the Queen, Miley Cyrus, and talk about her new album, Something Beautiful. And she actually said at the start of the podcast that she actually reached out to you to be on the podcast, and it was the first time she had ever done that. So I just want to know, as a fan, how that made you feel.
It made me feel really, really, really good. She came in, she was so cool. She came in and sat down and just started talking to us. And, I usually introduce our show. We have a whole open, it's consistent every week, but she just started going, and she said that. She said, I've never asked to be on a podcast before, but when I knew what you guys were doing, I really wanted to, nobody was going to talk about all of my albums, which is, my podcast is called Every Single Album, and we go through an artist's discography. If anyone's going to go through every record I've ever made and dissect it, I want to be a part of that. And I was so ready to stop her and say, oh, that's, thank you, Miley. I'm going to introduce the show, and then we'll start talking. And then I thought, we're just going to fix it in post. We're keeping this. I need this on air.
Amazing. And so speaking of Miley, something else that she also brought up on that episode is how she had done an intimate performance at Bemelman's Bar, which I said correctly. I told Nora backstage, there's no way I'm going to be able to say that correctly. But she talked about that, and then we've also seen this as a trend with artists. So Charlie Puth is another artist that we're big fans of at Spotify, and he recently announced that he's doing a mini residency at the Blue Note Jazz Club in New York and LA. And these are rooms of 100, 200 people versus tens of thousands. So I would love to hear from you, Nora. What do you think about that kind of return to these more intimate environments? And are there any lessons that you think any brands here can learn from that?
Yeah, I think it's really important to fans to feel like they still have access to a degree of intimacy with their favorite artists, because artists in general, and I'm sure this is true of brands in any sphere, are pretty good at scale at this point. People have their strategies for how do I message a campaign to get my album or my product or whatever it is just in front of as many eyeballs as possible. And I think fans are really savvy, and that they're fine with that and they're receptive to that, but they also want something that feels cozy and one-on-one, or as approximating of one-on-one as they can possibly get. And I think in particular, because of social media, an artist can do these super intimate shows, and yes, it's a more special thing for the people who are in the room, But then it does go out, and everybody on TikTok could see Miley at the Carlisle standing next to the piano, just tripping over herself, completely unable to pronounce the word Bemelmans, and just trying over and over, and she couldn't get it. And so it became this whole viral moment. So I think people have realized that you don't actually sacrifice that much in scale if you do lean into those very special, specific moments.
Yes, very authentic. I think another takeaway is just like the more personal something feels, whether it's an artist doing it or a brand doing it, the more relevant it will feel. Allegra, going to turn it over to you. Would love for you to talk a little bit about a couple of your campaigns. So there was McDonald Land, and then there's also the Minecraft movie.
Yeah.
How have you used those as forums to create communities for fans to kind of come together around things that they love? And how has McDonald's been able to tap into that fandom?
Yeah, so, one of the things that we talk a lot about is how do we think about our partnerships very intentionally around more of how are we kind of co-creating or building together versus renting or buying? And I think that's a really important component because I think for us, that really starts like the initial unlock of how we actually do this in a very authentic way. And of course, if we take Minecraft, for example, we have, of course, lovers of the McDonald's brand, lovers of Minecraft game, and really brought those two communities together in a full global campaign. So we were literally, it was, yes, US, but much, much larger across many, many markets across the globe. And we really brought to life this 360 campaign that had a whole host of different ways that customers could engage with not only the McDonald's brand, but then also Minecraft. So there were components of actually, redeeming for kind of different skins within the game environment. And so, a little bit of what you were saying around kind of this like mass personalization moment, it brings that to life. So you've got, this really mass campaign, but that's tapping into these communities. And there's a little bit of that personalization component that can really come to life. We also did something within that campaign in partnership with Spotify around taking kind of individual kind of collector's edition components of that campaign and then linking it back to the kind of musical elements that you would think about when you kind of bring that to life. And so there were kind of multiple ways that we not only tapped into those kind of like two fan bases, but then how we brought it to life as well. McDonald Land is an interesting one. McDonald Land was actually primarily a U.S. campaign, and that campaign was really all about really kind of leaning into the nostalgia of McDonald Land, right? So bringing back those moments, and it's funny, I actually have a friend who like still has his McDonald Land cups from like years and years and years ago, probably early 80s, and he has his cup and he will not let them go. And right, so it's really tapping into this group of individuals that's so passionate about kind of that nostalgia and really remembering that kind of memory structure of growing up with the McDonald's brand. So a ton of fun as you think about really how we have fun with these communities and really building that connection and partnership with so many of our partners.
I love that insight too, that you were able to tap into something like people have so much emotion and nostalgia toward the merch. Amazing. Tracy-Ann, I would love to hand it over to you. So Chase Sapphire has been able to cultivate large campaigns around big cultural moments across sports, across the arts, across music. Would love to hear a little bit more from you about how you've been able to tap into these fandoms, but also build brand loyalty from them.
So it's easier to be creative when you are not focused on the time-bound structure of a campaign, but rather building credibility over years. So we've built our credibility through consistency in arts and sports. And I think that is one of the things that we could draft off of with this iconic campaign that you're talking about. So we've spent so many years, like 44 years, sponsoring the US Open and working with the Return to Serve program that touches 168,000 kids, the Lincoln Center partnership that we have that gives access to culture for the tri-state area. So, and to name just a few, we've been heavily involved, meaningfully involved for so long that we have credibility when we come out swinging with a campaign that's all about providing that magic in the form of access to things that people really, really care about. And when it comes to experiences, we're betting that the bar needs to be on the unforgettable part of the equation. So an unforgettable experience is what's more likely to drive trust. Trust drives loyalty, and loyalty is a competitive advantage.
I appreciate your call out on longevity. I think like as a marketer, you know, you have your annual plan and you have to think about measurement. And so I was actually going to ask this question a little bit later, but would love to just bring it up now because you touched on that. How do you measure that? You know, there's obviously, you know, the measurement from digital channels, but also these kind of larger brand moments and activations and investments that you're making. So how do you kind of think about measuring effectiveness across both?
I like to think of it as de-risking the big bets. So I want to say about maybe 3/4 of our media investment is going through an auction of some kind. That makes it pretty precision-based, pretty repeatable. And so you're able to convince your CFO, hey, this thing that I'm doing over here is pretty reliable. We know what it's going to drive. And you use those assurances to de-risk the big swings. And that's the way we like to think about it. Because they're lagging metrics. If you try to squeeze something special, something magical, working with iconic talent, and trying to break the mold of the category that you're in this case, credit card, asking it to deliver something like trust or loyalty within a time-bound structure like a quarter or a year is sort of a bit of a fool's errand. So we think over multiple horizons and make that other 75% of the budget work extremely hard to take the risk out of the math.
I think that's a good piece of advice for all of us. Nora, back to you. You've had the ability to witness brands of all kinds tap into the kind of intersection of pop culture and music and sports, et cetera. I would love to hear from you. What is a brand or a campaign that you think really nailed it and did it right?
Well, so I was thrilled to hear you mention the US Open because I think that just every little bit of marketing that's going on there is so smart. And the one that I always think of is you go in, you know, I'm a casual tennis fan, but I love to go to the US Open. I think it's one of the great things that we have in New York. It's just so fun. And I always think about walking in there and they have those little stalls of the La Roche-Posay sunscreen samples. And it totally works on me. Like, that's why this is what I'm shouting out, is because I know for a fact that I always take one, and it's definitely saved me a time or two when the sun is blaring down on you. And I will forever associate that brand, that product, with
an unforgettable memory.
Yeah. An unforgettable experience. The idea of having a fun day watching tennis with your friends, you feel kind of preppy chic. Like, it totally works. And it's not just handing me a little plastic thing. It is forming an association between a brand and an experience and a lifestyle. And so I think that that's the one that comes to mind. So I was so excited to bring that up.
Yeah, I think it's being at the right place at the right time, which we talk a lot about with digital advertising, but you're talking about the full 360 experience and getting products in the hands of people too.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. So I was going to switch over to talk about effectiveness, measurement, how that attaches to this idea of fandom, but we kind of already started touching on that. So I'll just kind of continue that a little bit more with you, Tracy-Ann, and then I have some questions for you too, Allegra. So JPMorgan Chase has been a leader in digital transformation. Can you talk to us a little bit more about what were some of those aha moments that you had along the way in terms of measuring success and any metrics that we in the room should think about as we're launching our own campaigns this year?
I think I would say that my team and I have moved on from this idea of digital transformation, and it's more like digital, just do it. It's transforming all the time, so it's easy to lose track of what that means. And so for us, it's really about agility and being able to fluidly, move the cheese around, and our ability to do that with ease, with speed, leveraging everything in the toolbox that can make the life of a marketer easier, means we can invest more in those magical moments, in those memories that we know will help us stand out from the crowd and acquire customers for the long haul. Because really, if we were only invested in driving acquisitions, we would only be making rectangles for the internet. And I don't know that that brings joy in the long term, and it certainly doesn't drive loyalty in the long term. So we have to balance those two things. What I would say is, and you can't do a panel in 2025 without mentioning AI, so I'll be the first one to do it. I'm looking forward to the jetpack that AI provides in this particular context, because it will enable us to further de-risk the media investments that I think we will then see us reinvest in access and memories and experiences that drive the fandom and the loyalty. So there's no silver bullet. You have to do what's right for you inside your firm. But I would just advocate for don't get hung up on transformation. Just get on with it.
Transformation, I guess, what did you say? You said just do it, right? That's
yeah, digital.
I'm going to use that. Allegra, let's talk a little bit more about McDonald's. Now, McDonald's uses so many different touch points to connect with fans, everything from, of course, physical stores to digital advertising to your app to brand partnerships. Can you talk to us a little bit more about how you use all of those touch points together but still create a consistent and engaging experience across the customer journey?
Yeah, happy to. So we actually set out a couple years ago now kind of our North Star KPI, which is really around getting to 250 million 90-day active customers by 2027. We're currently at over 185 million. And if you just think about, it wasn't very long ago when we as an organization had zero visibility into our first-party data. I can remember that time. And so we have just seen incredible growth of our first-party data asset, which then allows us, of course, to really think about how we're building those really connected ecosystems across our overall digital ecosystem and done in partnership with our partners to really make sure that we are kind of looking at optimization of data, both within kind of our four walls and our partner four walls, so that we make sure that we're actually getting the most out of this partnership that we can. I mean, I mentioned this earlier, and I think it's really important around thinking around how we actually build together when it comes to partnerships. And, we also talk a lot about this concept of really standing in culture. And I think a lot of that, being able to take that first-party data and to be able to really understand our customer base, really understand our customer base within partnership ecosystems as well, helps us to have a better understanding of where our customers are at and what are the things that are going to be meaningful for them.
Great.
Can I add on to that?
Please.
I think it's an excellent point. The first-party data piece is really, really interesting because you hear people talk often about the plumbing and like getting everything situated so they can maximize it. But you rarely hear people talking about it, the power of it for insights. We talk a lot about it for measurement, ROI, proving the value of the work that you're doing inside your firm. But the ability to leverage it to extrapolate insights that helps you drive a competitive advantage or an edge, because we can all throw money at an experience, but reaching that bar of unforgettability and repeatability, and that thing that only you can, only you should, that comes from insights. And so making sure that whatever it is that you're building regarding your plumbing and your partnerships, that you're making sure that you're gearing it toward an insights engine. I think that's going to be a special sauce going forward.
Insights that are giving you a competitive edge, but also maybe just insights that will allow you to do better the next time around in the next campaign. So thank you for that build. I'm conscious that we're actually coming up on time, even though I definitely could keep this going. I have a lot of other questions for you. But I think we'll just end it with a quick round robin. I would love to hear from each of you, and we can start here, Allegra, with you, on any advice that you have for any marketers in the room that they can take and use, as soon as tomorrow. How can everyone here better tap into fandom to drive effective results?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is, and you mentioned this earlier, is just around AI. I mean, the reality is the world is changing. Digital transformation is going to be, a continuous thing that we're always navigating through. So I think for me, it's curiosity. It's curiosity about what's ahead. It's curiosity about how we utilize our first-party data. It's curiosity about our partners. It's curiosity about our ecosystem. And I think all of those things make our experience not only better for our customers, but our brand stronger as well.
I'll say two things. One is, it's kind of a funny but so true. I've been saying a lot lately, like to my team, keep your knees bent. Bumpy ride, but there's so much great and exciting stuff happening. And otherwise, I would say radical transparency. Like, nobody has this stuff figured out. So ask questions, bring your partners in, tell the truth, and be open to figuring it out together.
That's great. And Nora, I guess for you, maybe flip the question a little bit, since you're on the podcaster and creator side of the house here. So if you can just share with us a little bit more about what kind of metrics or how you kind of measure success when it comes to looking at more than reach. What tells you that maybe a podcast episode or the ringer and the community that you've built in general is really loyal?
Yeah, reach is easy, right? We know our numbers, we know how big an episode is, anything like that. But to me, it's the conversation that's going around a show. So we have comments on Spotify podcasts, and people think of the comment section often, I think, has this like negative connotation because in a lot of spaces everybody's fighting and it's nasty.
Yeah, we're scared of comments.
I'm not scared of comments. My comment section on my shows is so funny. And our listeners are like cracking jokes, and they're, sometimes they're talking back to us, but they have a lot to say and they want to feel like they're part of it and like they're connected. And so I think it's like those super users kind of is what they would be for us. They are so important because they model this pattern of behavior and of engagement for everybody else, who then goes, oh, I actually don't just have to listen to this in my headphones as I go, do my chores and clean my apartment. I can send in an email and they might talk about it. Or I can just feel a sense of connection with another listener by putting something in the comments and having someone respond. And the value to a listener that we provide, if we can give them an experience that makes them feel connected with culture and with other people, is so many multiples and multiples and multiples more valuable than I had 60 minutes of content to, kind of zone out to while I vacuum.
And they can use their card to buy tickets to the gig.
Exactly.
Boom.
Well, I think we're over, but thank you so much for the thoughtful conversation. Thanks, everyone, for joining, and hopefully you all took away some good nuggets from this conversation.